Welcome to What's Going On, helping you stay informed. I'm Dick Van Arkel. Tonight we have retired New York Police Department detective and cybersecurity expert Michael Fibosi. Michael, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started in detective work and cybersecurity.
Sure. So you don't start out as a detective. I started out in the police department as a patrol officer, and I was assigned to the subways, the New York City subways, riding trains from 8 at night to 4 in the morning, where there were fewer passengers, but still a lot of crime.
I imagine at that time there would be a lot of crime. You have a lot of stories to tell. Tell us a couple of stories that might be interesting to us. I saw one about a meat cleaver and
Sure.
one about a barbecue.
Okay, so those were stories involving the New York City subway, and the first was an individual who actually had a meat cleaver, and I was in sort of a combat situation, and I did pull my weapon, but I did not fire. What I did in that situation was gave the person a little distance, and I protected myself by standing behind one of the subway stanchions, and was able to talk to them and disarm them without any violence. So it was very
Really?
successful. Yeah.
That's something that you could teach these days, I'm sure. How about the barbecue story?
Yeah, that's quite a funny
It's
story.
more of a summer story.
Yeah. So this was a family barbecue in Coney Island, which is the beaches of Brooklyn. And it must have started raining very hard, and the family decided to pick up their beach equipment and ran onto the train to go back to Manhattan. And I happened to be patrolling the train, and when I got to the last car, there was actual barbecue on the train.
And the people were there barbecuing. Did they still have their bathing suits on and such?
Yeah, it looked like they were throwing their clothes together, but the barbecue was still on, and I said, we really have to put that out.
That's funny. And then you became involved in detective work,
Yes.
and that's where you found your calling.
Yes, I did. I always wanted to be a detective, and I was always interested in technology, and I'm very competitive by nature, so I wanted to sort of catch bad guys. And so I was looking at the crime reports, and in those days there were paper crime reports, and I saw a pattern, and so there was a person doing an armed robbery in the subway, and so I happened to be at the right place at the right time where he had a sawed-off shotgun and was able to arrest him without firing any shots, recover the shotgun.
How were you able to be in the right place at the right time? How did you accomplish that?
So today they use data analytics and predictive analytics to see where crime patterns were or are. Back when I was undercover, I would actually look through the crime reports every day when I would go in, and I would recognize patterns.
Oh, and so you were able to apprehend this person. You seem to have a high passion for your job. Would you say that you love what you do?
Oh yeah, I definitely love it. From day one, I enjoyed it. I just felt that I wanted to target my career towards investigative work because it was sort of like a puzzle and a challenge, and so I went into detective work. There I was assigned to a precinct detective in Harlem and Washington Heights, where I did like robbery and homicide investigations, but I always had this interest in financial crimes and white-collar crimes. I felt that it was a type of crime that people committed, and that there were few people looking into it at that time.
And so you were assigned to a special unit that they made up?
Yeah, so so from robbery homicide, I went to a unit called the Special Investigations Division, which is a division within the NYPD detectives. We're part of the Terrorism Task Force, the Major Case Squad, the Bank Robbery Task Force, and Special Frauds. So Special Frauds is where I wanted to be because that was bank and financial crime investigations. And I always had growing up in New York and being around Wall Street, I always had interest in investigating that type of crime because, like I said earlier, fewer people were going into that investigative path, and that the people who are committing crimes inside banks and inside Wall Street could pull off huge scams.
Huge scams. Speaking of which, there's one story I know that you're going to want to tell, and I have something here that, do you remember this? Master Thief, how a Brooklyn busboy scammed the world's top moguls.
And
This is a story that you worked on, is it not? This is how New York Police Department cracked the ultimate cyber fraud. Rip-off of the rich and famous. They were had. Brooklyn busboy busted in theft of 2,100+ tycoon IDs. And here you are. There's a picture of you in the corner, much younger. I don't know if our viewers can see this, but there's the perpetrator, ugly cuss. Anyway, tell us about this story.
that's pretty amazing. Where did you find that? I haven't seen that in about 15 years.
We have a very good crew here at the station.
Amazing. So in the bottom, the picture is myself and my partner, Jamal Days, and we worked that case together, and we also had the assistance of the U.S. Secret Service and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. And that case came about, I got called from one of the financial institutions in New York where a celebrity type person had their identity stolen. So I was well known in the banking community as New York's cyber cop or New York's financial crime cop and detective. And so, so the financial institution called me, and I said, oh, this is very interesting. It happened to be a $300 million check that was moving around the financial institutions. And so I called my contacts within the banking industry and alerted them if there was a fraud and or ID theft with a CEO type person. We actually called the Operation CEO, since we kind of put a tag name on most large investigations.
Sure.
And so I started getting calls from some of the security directors at different banks and financial institutions, and that they said, yes, we do have someone targeting these individuals. So I started this investigation, and I'm very competitive, and I see this guy he was really covering all his tracks. He was using using the internet from the public library in New York City, which at the time, at the end of the day, the cache of the computer was deleted, and so the history was deleted. That has changed now. However,
So he was doing this at the library?
yeah, at the library, was able to log on to different accounts and get into different banks.
And then they would erase all their stuff, so this guy was getting away virtually scot-free.
Well, for a time, yeah, and he used a software package that hid the phone number he was calling from. So every investigative tool that I had in my toolbox, he sort of had it covered. Fortunately, I got notified that a credit card making machine was being shipped to what we call a mail drop.
He was also going to start making credit cards.
Yes, he was going to start making fake credit cards, but the names on the cards were going to be other people's names.
What a scam.
And yeah, it was an amazing scam. And what he was also trying to do was set up online accounts of the name of the victim, but he would control and then try to have the ability to connect those two bank accounts and to move money between those accounts.
And he was successful for a long time?
Well, I was successful for a while, but my background in ID theft, my background in financial crimes, was enough to figure out a plan to get him. And what we did was we had this package that was delivered to this mail drop sent on a courier service, and he would call the courier service to have it diverted to another location. So then what we did was then we dressed up as a courier service employee and sort of made the delivery to a location in Brooklyn, and the suspect was pulling up. And this is kind of an interesting part of the story is, as myself and my partner were approaching the car, he sort of got a little nervous, thinking that he may have made us, and he started to pull away. And we tried to get in the car, and the car was locked, and I actually dove through the sunroof and
You
arrested
dove
him.
through the sunroof to get at this man.
Yes, and so it was pretty good story.
That's wild. That's very wild. And is he still doing time, or did he get off with a slap on the wrist?
Well, he was convicted in federal court for a variety of crimes, but he actually served his time and he's out. And he was not a citizen in the United States, and he was deported. And if you can only imagine what country he was deported to.
I can't imagine.
The Cayman Islands.
Cayman, of course, of course. That's where all cybercrime. Very, very interesting. You also you appeared in front of Congress.
Yes, because of that case, and at the time, ID theft was not in its infancy, but we used to call that account takeover. Now, identity theft is something that it's on everyone's tongue. It's on the back of everyone's mind, from financial institutions to individuals to corporations. And we've seen ID theft explode over the years. So the way it's evolved is that from that case was just sort of individual credit cards, and now we see these large data breaches from cyber criminals from either inside the United States or outside the United States.
I'm interested in the kind of questions that Congress asks you. Was it how I've seen it on other TV shows, and it always seems so dry. How long did you appear before them?
So it is rather dry. It's sort of your testimony is written out ahead of time, and sort of looked at, and I wouldn't say approved, but sort of okayed. And so the testimony that I gave was talking about identity theft and ways that we could to minimize it.
Oh, very interesting. You were also, this was right around the time of 9/11, and you were also there at that fateful event. And I don't know if you can share any of that with us. That
Sure.
must have been a difficult time for you.
It was a very difficult day and difficult time, not only for myself but all my colleagues and New York City and the world. So yes, I was there. I responded from my office after the first plane hit the first tower, but before the second plane had hit. And I was working initially as an investigator to try to see what was going on, and then realized that this is now a serious emergency evacuation. So help evacuate people. In the meantime, the tower started to fall, and fortunately, as I got caught up in that when the building fell and all that debris. And I ran north toward, north in New York City, and some of my friends who ran west, unfortunately didn't make it. So yeah, it was very tough.
That was very fortunate for you. Well, thank God you made it through, and we're glad to have you here in California. What do you think of you've been out here for a while now. You've got a whole new career going for you. Are you enjoying it out here?
Yes, I am enjoying it. So my time, so after 9/11, since I was assigned to the Computer Crime Squad, we had been tasked with creating a database that would help with human identification. And so that I was assigned to the morgue, which was not a great assignment, but it was the one that we could be useful. So that experience, learning about DNA and human identification, I was recruited by a company out here in California that was developing a DNA sequencing device that would be able to rapidly identify human DNA. So I was helping them with their technology and also trying to get it into government and law enforcement and crime labs.
So DNA, doing it quickly, that's, I know it used to take maybe weeks, maybe months. What have they got it down to?
So as technology moves on, it's like it gets faster over time and cheaper. So right now we could sequence DNA using saliva or blood in under 2 hours. So you actually could bring it to a crime scene and get some leads, and get a DNA profile that can match against either a local, state, or federal database.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's
it's pretty cool.
really going to change crime fighting. So that's one of the things you're doing. Are you doing other?
Yeah.
things?
So I'm really enjoying my time in Silicon Valley and my time in California. And so I've been involved in some other technology companies. I was involved in developing an app that you could use to walk around the city safely. I was also involved with a sort of a covert communication tool company that was helping out different agencies. And right now, using my financial crime background and my expertise in ID theft, I'm going to be helping out a startup that would validate its customers using an API. So it's a software that will validate a customer.
That's great. So I was just curious, taking you back to the beginning.
Okay.
Did you have when you were a child, were you thinking of do you play cops and robbers back then, or
Well,
did that just come about in high school because your friends were all doing it?
Yeah, it sort of came about that way. So the high school that I went to, a lot of the graduates go on to civil service type jobs. So I just decided to take the exam, and so I did fairly well on it. So I got called right away. But I always had interest in two things, really: finance and technology, and then using those two skills with the law enforcement kind of melded really well for me, and it helped out in these type of investigations.
Are you currently, do you do any sleuthing for anybody? Can people call you up and use your services, or did you ever do any of that kind of stuff?
I did do some of that, but more of I like helping people out. I like helping others. So it's sort of more of helping out if you have a question. Now I had my own firm in New York that did investigative work, and it was quite successful. I had a database company that stored evidence for civil litigation. I had sold that, so I had a successful exit, as they say here in the Valley. And so now I'm enjoying my life. I live in Palo Alto, which is a great place to live.
Great place to live in.
Yeah,
Yes,
so I'm very fortunate.
what do you see on the horizon for protecting ourselves from these kind of fraud things?
Well, I think the theme that I've seen through my career is sort of twofold. One is that the insider threat is the most dangerous, meaning that someone who worked inside a company or a third-party vendor that may be upgrading a software package or has access into a network. So a lot of times a sophisticated criminal will look at that soft link where they could penetrate or impersonate an employee and gain access to a network. I think that is the most, the hardest type to investigate, and also it leaves a lot of people vulnerable because you don't know that someone's inside the database or inside the network. Sophisticated software programs and cybersecurity experts are constantly trying to stay ahead of that game. And we learn every time there's a successful hack. So I think the second part is that the individual, you and I, have to be vigilant also in protecting our information, sort of making sure that we get our credit statements every month. And now with phone apps, you actually could follow all transactions on your credit cards. So you could get notified very quickly if a charge was done on one of your accounts. So if you're diligent, you can minimize your own ID theft losses.
And I guess that there's these companies that now will warn you if anything fraudulent is happening on any of your accounts. I guess that's a wave of the future. Some of the stuff that I read in your bio was that they're looking at things that can listen and look through walls now.
Right. The technology just keeps getting better. Like if you just think about.
That's kind of scary.
Well, yeah. Technology is a two-edged sword, right? We have the ability to encrypt communications, right? There are software package you could download onto your computer or on your phone that encrypts either the email or encrypts the conversation. There are large technology companies here in the Bay Area that sort of want the customers to use that because they'll use what's called a two-factor authentication that lets them know it's you. For example, like your thumbprint on a mobile device, or inside the hardware of phones now have a secure element of data that is encrypted, so that the information leaving the phone is encrypted only to the server that wants to receive it. And the two-factor authentication is a good way. I think recently you'll see if you log on to one of your email accounts, you may get a notification that a certain computer or a certain device has logged on to your account.
I've seen that.
So that's a good way to know if someone has impersonated you or has your password. So that's a good way to protect yourself.
Wow. And do you offer any kind of services that people could call or subscribe to, or where do you find out more information?
Well, I think on the internet, you could find plenty of information. What I'm focusing now on, since I'm right in the Bay Area, is helping startups and giving my expertise and experience to help them be more secure and to validate their customers and sort of make it more safe for everyone to use.
Okay. And as for the future, do you have any plans for starting another company or just going along the path that you're going now?
Well, for right now, I think I'm going to continue to consult and be an advisor to CEOs who are starting new companies that may be new and either have a really new technology, a really good technology, but to understand how to implement it into the real world. I think that is one of the challenges for startups, is that you may have the best science and the best programmers, but what you have are people willing to pay for it, and are people going to use it, right? Sort of like back, just because you have the best technology doesn't mean it's going to sell.
Well, and that you're not going to use it either.
Right.
If you don't have somebody there holding your hand, showing you how to use it. Are there resources that show you how to do that, or do they have to call somebody like you? You've already answered that question.
Well, I think that there are the online classes. There's also business school in town or up in the city or Berkeley that has professors that talk about new technology and new company formation and how to create a good product, how to market a good product, how to sell a good product. So I think that for new companies, I mean, they certainly, I'd love to help them. I like meeting new people. I've always loved new technology, so I'd be glad to help them out.
Okay. We really don't have a place for you to put your phone number or anything like that. So, and since this is just a practice show, we're going to leave that out. But maybe next time we can include some of that in.
Well, I mean, I'm here, you know, being interviewed by you to sort of give the information to our viewers,
Yes.
to try to help them feel confident about being online and how to protect themselves.
Okay. I feel I feel less protected now because you have told me that there's a lot of stuff out there that I need to start doing, and I guess I'm going to have to start doing that.
Yeah, I mean, you could start with just watching your mail, checking your credit card statements.
That's one thing is they send you those credit card statement or the offers for credit. I understand that you should be
Shredding them,
shredding them.
and unless you
And-
need to use them.
And how many of us of you viewers have shredders out there? I'm thinking of getting one myself right
Well,
now.
I think that's a good idea. I use an industrial shredder
An
for my stuff.
An industrial shredder.
And I also, you know, when I log on, I might even use different computers or different operating systems, you know.
Change your password often.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Exactly.
And encryption. That's where it's all going to go.
Yeah, and I think that the two-factor authentication is really the future also. I know that people don't like putting their thumbprints on, but there may be a newer technology that coming.
Well, you know, we'll leave it at the two-factor authentication, and that should work well for us. It's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise, and maybe we can have you back on another show at some
Sure.
other time. Thank you very much,
I'd
Michael.
love to come back, and thank you. I've had a good time.
All right. Thank you very much.
It's been fun.